Alright, so hello and welcome. So, as the video suggests, this is going to be a plain overview slash designer slash everything for By Blood Alone. First of all, go ahead and click that like button. The reason I'm saying this is because this video is probably over an hour and a half long, and I do not expect you to watch this whole thing. I expect you to use this as a quick reference guide or a reference guide for all future uses that you will be playing. This will be the only guide I make on this. I am not going to make 10 guides like I did the tank video guides because Paradox decides to keep changing their fucking minds. So, instead of base designs that I will tell you are good, I will show you my methodology of each design and why it is built like that, so I don't have to do this video again. I will also go over absolutely everything that has changed in this update for planes, at least, okay, or at least try to. There are going to be chapters down in the video description, and also just chapters in general, so you can skip around to the part of the video that you need. I highly suggest you do that, okay? The reason they're there is for you to use them, okay? Other than that, I'm going to tell you what's going to be in this video now, okay? I have an actual book here. That's how much stuff that has changed, okay? So, what is new? What are the new air missions, and how does it all work, okay? How agility and speed affect fighter combat and fighter one comparison, okay? If you watch any part of this video, you need to understand and watch that part first, okay? You need to understand how fighter combat works, and you need to understand how air superiority missions really and interceptions work, okay? That is priority number one. If you don't understand that, go to that part of the video, watch it, okay? You absolutely need to understand that before you do anything else, because everything is going to build off of that, okay? Second, I'll show you the transport planes and how you need 50 transport planes to build. You basically need 50 transport planes to drop a division now. Doesn't matter the division size, but you know. We will talk about wood planes. We will talk about fighter discussion fighters, okay, versus interceptors, because there is an actual difference. We will talk about the new carrier fighter slash bomber that you can make. We will talk about CAS. We will talk about Maritime Patrol, which is new. We will talk about scouts. We will talk about navs. We will talk about strategic bombers. We will cover rocket planes and the mine layers that you can now build. We will also talk about jet aircraft. We will talk about my SR-71. We will talk about the doctrines and what has changed and what you can manipulate there. And then we will talk about spirits finally, okay? So that is everything we're going to cover in this video, okay? Again, use the chapters, go to the part you need. So, last thing, I am on the updated version that's in the open beta. We are not on the same thing. I'm not on the thing that is being used currently. It will be patched within a week or a month, whenever the fuck Paradox gets around to it, okay? Just so you are aware. Because they fucked up on the patch, obviously. They fucked up on day one patch. On the fucking DLC immediately, so they have to patch it literally a day afterwards. So I'm on that patch. Now, that's not going to mean a whole lot. You're going to get this in about a week, so, bear with me, okay? So, I will see you at the new fighter missions. I'll catch you there. Okay, so, we are at the new mission screen. Okay, this is going to look a little different from when you used to play By Blood, or so By Blood alone introduced this whole fucking screen, okay? Compared to fucking Armored DLC we had. So, click the air mode. You now have this whole section right here. It's called Ungrouped Air Wings, okay? Now, from this section, this is just all your ungrouped air wings, okay? You can then select the planes individually here, okay? Just like you would basically any army group. You can set the priority here. Now, these are just ungrouped, okay? Now we're going to change some things, okay? So, first thing you can do here is you can put all of these planes into different theaters or wings or whatever you want. Squadrons is really what they're called, or theaters. So, for example, I put all of the fighters in this theater right here, okay? It is called Ecuadorian Air Group number 1. You can see the fuel status. You can see how much each one of these planes is going to consume. We'll talk about all this stuff in a minute, but basically know that you can change the emblems to whatever you want and know that it will be there. Okay, so if I do this with naval bombers, you can see that they are technically a part of the same air group. Okay, but you don't have to do that. You can press this little handy button here called Create Air Group, and it'll make a new theater for you. Okay. So, I would suggest if you're going to have like a central like European theater, you put all of your fighters and then your CAS and your whatever there, okay? And it does it by wings. It doesn't do it by like plane types. It's just by 2 wings. So each one of these wings should be 100. And that's how it's going to work, okay? But for just in future intended purposes, I'm going to put all of these damn planes in this damn air group if I can, okay? And you just hold the left shift down, and there you go. Baba boopy. You have 23 air wings in one damn massive air group, okay? Also on this screen, you can set different things here, okay? Just like you were able to before. You can create a new air group from here, which again does this. You can also split your wings if you have enough. You can merge wings. You can manage your air groups, okay? And 2 more groups selected in order to merge them, right? So you can merge them. You have different reserve, regular, and elite. This is the exact same as it was before, okay? Elite is basically just you only use the plane of that squadron that you put in there. So, for example, this plane, this squadron, Fighter Squadron Wing 2, or Fighter Wing 2, will only use wood planes. That's it, because they're elite, and that's what that means. Regular means they'll reinforce off of whatever, and reserve means, they'll do whatever the fuck they want. The last thing here is this equipment tag, okay? So, this will determine every equipment that goes into this wing. Now, this is actually pretty fucking important. So, for example, I'm just going to show this off briefly. If you go to any plane, you can set its equipment type right here, okay? You can set whatever you want and save, okay? Then, if you have air wings in a air group like this, and you use this equipment tag, they will only get planes from that equipment type specifically. Doesn't matter anything else. They will only take from there, okay? It's basically how you classify them and organize them for more specific reinforcements of your air wings. This is very key and crucial. We'll get to that when we get to more designs. But basically, you can set only certain planes go to certain areas. So, for example, your best planes go to one theater, and your reserve planes go to another. You can do it like that. Again, we have no retreat. Again, standard operation, day, night cycle. Okay, you have 3 missions per day, 2 missions at day, 1 at night. And then lastly here, deselect all, select half, whole air wings, and remove selection from air group, okay? Now, last thing here is you can quickly deploy air wings. So if you add this quick deploy button, you can basically just fucking spam air wings out if you really wanted to fuck with that. Or you can just create a new air wing here. And if you do that, it will just, for example, I get rid of this fucking transport plane, and I delete this bullshit. And then I come over here, you'll see I have a new air wing. This is the new screen here. Okay, you can select specialized wings, elite, regular, reserve. Okay, I'm doing regular. Baba boopy is being deployed. It's up here in the undergrouped air wing, and I assign it down here. That's how that works. That's how I would do it generally. Okay, so this whole screen has been talked about now. Now, I will mention what has changed significantly. Okay, so beforehand, in every mission you did, it didn't matter the type. If you were going to do a mission, for example, let me take this patrol bomber for some fucking reason, and I say I want to bomb East Pacific with a naval strike, okay? I only had to deal with whatever fighter cover was in this area. That's it, okay? I only had to deal with that. I did not have to deal with enemy fighters here and here. I just magically flew through them and nothing happened, okay? That is no longer the case. You will be intercepted at every single air zone that you draw this line through, okay? Now, the interception of how effective that is varies, okay? But just know that you can actually get fucking shot down. So, for example, if you were Germany and you were going to bomb England, okay? What used to happen, which would annoy the fuck out of everyone, was Germany would get some bombers. They would then strike Scotland, okay, from northern France, okay? And they would bomb the shit out of them and not have to deal with any of the fighters coming from northern England or southern England. They would have to deal with only the fighters in Scotland, which means the UK air player had to spend 5,000 aircraft and fucking defend Scotland, okay? Then shift down to southern England when the German player decided he wanted to bomb there, and then North England when he decided to want there. Now you only have to put like 4,000 planes here, 1,000 planes here, 500 planes here. In theory, that's how this works, okay? Because they have to fly through all that shit and they'll die doing that, okay? I love this change. However, it does lead to some fucking problems. Namely, I will take my goddamn SR-71, if I can actually find this fucking thing, which is a massive fucking aircraft. So, for example, this thing has stupid range. So, if we wanted to go bomb Greenland, for whatever fucking reason, you will see that we have to fly through every single one of these goddamn air zones, okay? And if they are contested, well, we have to fly through them and get shot down, okay? And it's a circular thing, okay? You cannot, for example, change, like, you cannot make a path, if that makes sense. You cannot draw lines to get to a certain place. That's not how this works. It used to work like that in Hearts of Iron 3, but they didn't do that here. You have no way of changing the direction that they will go besides building an air base in a certain region and hope to God that it changes their flight path. That's it. You're just fucked either way. You're fucked either way. The only way to do that, airbase, maybe it gets you a different path, and you only have to cross you don't cross the Labrador Sea, and now you cross only the mid-Atlantic gap and North Atlantic to Denmark Strait. Okay, so you'd be able to change it slightly if you had an airbase. That's the only way to change it. It's a shit way of doing it, but there it is. At least it's better than what it was before. It is a lot better than what it was before, okay? I'm not complaining about, them changing it. I'm just being like, it could have been better, but it is way better than what it was. So now you don't have to no longer have to spend stupid amounts of aircraft defending a region that's being bombed for no fucking reason. Another example I'll give you is if you were going to strat bomb Russia. For example, if you're going to strat bomb Russia as Germany, before, you could just spawn planes in eastern Siberia and they wouldn't have any planes and you just bomb the shit out of them, okay? That is no longer possible. You will have to fly through all of these fucking air zones and get intercepted and destroyed along the way. Means that you will lose your planes and you won't be able to bomb effectively. More or less, okay? Hope I covered that well enough in detail, okay, for you to understand that it's a pretty major fucking change that has happened, okay? Next, I will talk about the new missions here that we have, okay? So, let's go through them. You have pilot exercises like you've always had, okay? You can train your pilots. You can hover over here, and you can see what penalties you get, okay? You get actual bonuses if you train your air wings. So, train your air wings, but they do use fuel. If you hold shift and click this button, they'll train to their sufficient level and then stop, okay? So, you don't get more air XP, but they're all trained up. Okay. Next is air superiority. Okay. This is useful for fighters, again, dedicated fighters that are going to stop enemy fighters and then go for bombers or CAS afterwards. That is the primary mission of air superiority. Okay. Close air support is, again, just as it was. You bomb the shit out of enemy divisions, they lose org and they lose strength. Okay. Next is interception. Okay, there's a very key difference here. You can also no longer, on a fighter, do both of these fucking missions. Now, that used to be a thing, and I used to tell people that it was fucking stupid because the AI would choose randomly if it wanted to do air superiority or interception. That is no longer the case. You choose one or you choose the other. Okay, so interception means you will target bombers first, then fighters. Okay, that is what air interception means. Again, useful if you're getting bombed and you want to shoot the bombers down, but not really engage the fighters for some fucking reason. Or, more importantly, if you're England and you have a heavy fighter squadron in Scotland, you want them to only fly if they're going to shoot the bombers down, while you have other planes, like your Spitfires, right? So your Spitfires would actually be on air superiority in England, and your heavy fighters would only be on air intercept to destroy enemy bombers coming in. Okay, that's how that should work. That's how you should do it. Next, strat bombing. Strat bombing hasn't changed significantly. Again, you order strat bombing, you bomb the shit out of people. You can still target. This system, I have heard, it really doesn't fucking matter, but your results may vary. Next is naval strike. Naval strike, again, is really the same as it has always been. Again, you bomb ships. The last one right here is kamikaze. It is exclusive to Japan, and how effective it is, I don't really fucking know. Maybe pretty effective, maybe not. Japan has a little rocket plane that they can get, and I might show you later, might not. But basically, you can do a kamikaze mission. Your plane blows up, but you do a lot more damage to the enemy ships. Your results may vary. Port striking. Port striking is for bombing enemy ports. If you are going to bomb enemy ports, good on you. If not, then don't. But you have to. It's basically you have to look at your intel screen the whole fucking time and determine if, in fact, the enemy fleet is there. If it is there, then bomb the shit out of it, and then the player will die, and blah, 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 blah. Next, logistic strike. Okay, nothing has changed here. You can blow the shit out of trains, as you usually did. Same as always. Air resupply is the same as always. You can drop you can drop a shit ton of supplies. Okay. In your current version, before the update, or maybe, I don't fucking know. If you're playing on the update, congratulations. It is 4 transport costs right now on the live version. It's 20 in the beta version, and it will be 20 in about a week from now. So, they cost significantly more. You have to have 50 of them to drop a single paratrooper division, and paratrooper divisions are really fucking broken right now. I can barely get them to work. Okay. For example, can't even set up the fucking order on a paratrooper right now if you don't have 50 planes. And then if you get 50 planes, it may or may not be there, and then maybe or may not you can deploy paratroopers. I'll put it to you like this. 90% of the time you're able to drop paratroopers before this patch, before the DLC came out. You're 90% of the time you're able to figure out what the fuck was wrong and drop paratroopers. Now it's about 5 to 10% chance. Maybe you can get it to work. Maybe it will fucking fix itself eventually. I don't really know. Just know that transport planes are a little bit fucking broken with paratroopers right now. Next is naval mine laying. Okay, now these are 2 missions that nobody really ever fucking talks about or does. So, technically, if you can mine lay if you have a specific plane that we'll talk about. You can drop mines from it, and you can also mine sweep with aircraft without having to have ships. Okay, and it's very important, and it's very nice for you to just drop mines everywhere. I'll show you the text when we get to that part of the video. Next is air recon. Now, they have changed air recon slightly. So, before, you used to have a plane, okay, and it used to just be single air recon only, okay? You have to read it very carefully. Perform aerial scouting and intel gathering. Non-scout planes can only execute this mission on enemy-controlled states. If you are a regular scout plane, like this plane is, okay, and what I mean by that is, if we look, we're getting a bit complicated here, but I'll just go through it quickly. If you have a recon plane like this, where its primary slot is a camera, you can recon during peacetime, okay? If you don't have that, and for example, you have an SR-71 like me, and you have a naval weapon, we'll talk about this plane later, and a recon camera here, you cannot recon during peacetime because of what it says down here. It can only be executed by non-scout planes in enemy-controlled states. That's just how that works. The last and the most important mission that has been added is Naval Patrol. Patrol the sea without engaging enemy ships and help friendly task forces patrolling in the area spot enemies. If executed at night, you have a lower penalty, blah, blah. You have penalty for shit, okay? Now, I can't tell you how fucking massive of a change this is. People may not talk about this, but it is a massive fucking change. So, for example, this aircraft right here, I will have to actually pull up the designer. So, this aircraft is called fucking Patrol 2. So, without getting into major details, if you hover over Patrol right here, you'll see that you have plus 20 surface detection, so 32 surface detection and 15 sub detection, and a minus 40 penalty at night for finding enemy ships. I don't need to tell you how fucking broken this is, okay? This is very good and is going to change naval gameplay significantly. Very significantly. Because catapult planes, okay, have a surface detection of 10. You would need 3 or more to get this, okay? That's possible on ships, but you're going to be sacrificing slots and you may die doing it, okay? Over 30 surface detection is very good, okay? And you won't really need, again, highly variable here. Depends on what fucking Navy you're doing. But if you have 32 surface detection and 15 sub detection, you can see a lot of shit. And that's going to be very good for you to detect enemy ships. So, what does this mean in practicality? Basically, if you have a patrol of your patrols, and they go on naval patrol, They will look in this area and they'll be like, hey, enemy ship are sighted. Okay? But you also need a friendly task force patrolling in the area, I think. Okay? Because it will spot an enemy ship, but it won't engage, right? It can't engage on its own. So if you have a single recon ship out here, which I'll talk about previously in some video I did, but just know that a recon ship out here, you will be boosting the recon ship's ability to see what the fuck is out here and instantly detect it, and then your task force can set sail and instantly engage it. And your naval bombers will be able to see it and they'll blow it the fuck up and a whole bunch of other shit, okay? You were previously not able to fucking do this, so I can't tell you how much of a change this is. You can basically just have a screen of naval patrol bombers out here, and they will look for enemy ships, and if they see them, they'll be like, hey, we have a problem. As long as you have a single ship out here, it doesn't matter what the ship type is, they'll help them spot it. You can be like, cool, I see it, time to engage with strike force, and they'll come out and they'll blow that shit up. Hopefully that made sense. Otherwise, I will now talk to you about the speed and how it affects fighters and stuff, okay? So, see you there. Okay, so the most important section of this video. We're going to talk about agility and how it, and speed, okay, and how it affects aerial combat. So, before I get to the numbers, there's a formula down below in the description. There are also several more things you can read that I will link down there if you want more in depth on this air combat system, okay? If you want that, read it. It's over 60 fucking pages. But basically, there's a formula. I'll put it on screen right now for the Fighter 1 comparison to Fighter 1. So we're going to compare this plane right here, this Fighter 1, which has a single engine right here, engine 2, okay? And we're going to compare it. It has the exact versus a Fighter 1 comparison, okay? And the only difference here is that I maxed out as much armament on air attack, okay, with heavy machine guns as I possibly could, versus the speed, okay? So as you can see, Fighter 1 has more air attack and has lower speed of 533 versus 542 and 16 air attack. Now, you might be wondering how much of a speed difference that is. Well, basically, 15 kilometers roughly equals 1 agility. However, if you do the actual fucking math that I'm going to put on the screen right now, you will see that this comparison equals 0.18%. Not 1%, 0.18% more damage and less damage that you will take. So, yeah. Basically, wrap as much shit as to your plane as possible, and don't worry about the speed, really. It doesn't really matter, okay? Next, we're going to compare a Fighter 1, okay, so this Fighter 1 right here, with a single engine versus 2 engines on a Fighter 1 star, okay? Now, you can see that the cost significantly goes up. Also, you will see that our speed on a Fighter 1 is significantly faster than on a Fighter 1 star. This is on the open beta patch. Remember that. Okay? This is what it will be in a week from now because they fucked up. So, you have more thrust on a 2 engine, but you go slower. Okay? Also, you burn a lot more fuel. You burn 0.37 compared to 0.21. That might be insignificant for you, but trust me, that is not when you're running thousands and thousands of aircraft. That is not insignificant. Okay? Now, what does, besides the production cost, what does this actually mean? This plane goes slightly faster, right? And this plane has slightly more air attack. So, what does it actually mean? Very simple here, okay? A Fighter 1 versus the Fighter 1 star. You take the speed. I'll put it on the screen. The formula. What does it come out to? 0.7. Not 1%. 0.7 of a percent. Not 1, 0.7%. Yeah. So that's how much more damage and reduction you'll take. So as you can see, it is not fucking worth it to have a 2-engine plane for a specific air superiority fighter. It is not worth it. Okay? And the speed difference doesn't mean shit. Okay? I just wanted to inform you of that. It is very important that you understand that. If you don't understand what I said, watch this section again, and hopefully I explained it. Otherwise, there will be things in the description for you to check out. But basically, your two engines, the slower you go doesn't really matter. What really matters is your agility. As long as your agility is the same, you're good. If your speed is slightly lower, even by 30 something kilometers, doesn't really matter. So hopefully that explains it. Next, I will go on to the fucking transport planes. So, quick summary of transport planes. You drop supply on the open beta patch, which will be the new patch. They're 20 cost instead of 4 because Paradox didn't beta test a goddamn thing because they're mongoloids. I don't know how that even got past fucking the first patch. I don't know how somebody looked at that and was, yeah, that's okay. When regular plane, just a regular basic airplane is like 18. It used to be 16, and this used to be 4. I don't know how that got past basic shit, but it did. Congratulations, Paradox. Otherwise, you still need aerial. So to drop basically any fucking paratrooper division, as I stated, you need 50 planes in a squadron to drop one paratrooper division. Okay, that's just how it works now. And again, as I stated, dropping a fucking paratrooper division is fucking mongolly hard. And if you do the paratrooper mission in however the province, it'll tell you you need 50 transport planes here. And sometimes you'll be able to click there and it'll do it. For example, if you you click right here and maybe it'll do it right now, but here it might pop up, it might not. You may have to disband the whole fucking air wing and do it over again. And after you paradrop, you may have to fucking delete the orders and do it all over again. I don't know, guys. I don't think it's going to be fixed, but that's just the way it is right now. Hopefully it is fixed and they get their head out their ass, but that's transport planes. Also, the fact that you can drop aerial resupply for command, again, still good. The last thing here I'll mention is that squadron size is 100 now. I don't know if I mentioned that, but yeah, squadron sizes are 100. That's just the way it is. The only exception to the 100 rule is 10 scout planes. So, yeah. Next, I'll go on to the wood planes, and I'll talk about this little squadron size there, okay? I'll see you there. Okay, so we're on to the wood plane section. I will, just before we start all of these fucking designs here, I will just tell you that your squadron sizes are now 100. The only exception here is if you have a scout plane, and it has 10, or you're on a carrier. That's it. Those are the only exceptions here. And you have to have a dedicated scout plane for that, which we'll talk about. But for this section, we're talking about wooden airplanes. Okay, so wood planes. This is roughly how this works. So wood planes only require rubber. You may be scratching your head there. Yes, I did say that right. Okay. Now, to make a wood fighter of any kind, bomber, cast bomber, naval bomber, whatever the fuck you want, you need to use the interwar small airframe. Okay? The interwar small airframe is the 1933 one. Okay? If you use the one from 1936, as stupid as it sounds, you will still pay aluminum. So you have to use a 1933 variant of the interwar fighter and then give it non-strategic material usage. Okay? Now, how you get non-strategic metal research is basically, it takes 2 seconds. It is on aircraft construction right here. You can get it in 1936, literally the start of the game, and you can use it, okay? Now, these wood planes technically suffer from -6 air defense for -2 aluminum, okay? I wouldn't use these planes. They're not even fighter ones. They're less than fighter ones. But if you are playing in a country or a mod, or there is some reason you can't get aluminum in your country, which can vary for a variety of reasons, this works. Paying only rubber to make a plane is very handy in certain niche specific cases, okay? And I put heavy machine guns on here, and I'll talk about this in the fighter section. with the drop tank, and you have the first engine. Okay, first engine 2. This is basically the engine you can get in 1936 if you research it. If you're going to build planes, you probably should research the first engine. And then you stick some heavy machine guns on there. You can get heavy machine guns in the late 36, or you could just stick with light machine guns. Whatever the fuck works for you. You can also get a drop tank on 36, and that's going to add range for weight. And weight doesn't really matter. No changes have been made. Weight is exceeding thrust. Okay. So if you wanted to, I suggest you have to make it under the thrust for the weight to actually be a thing. But again, Paradox is breaking shit right now. So this is being better designed because it can actually fucking exist. But the plane exists already. So let's just say plane exists already, but that's how you do it, okay? For a wood plane. Again, just to go over this again. Wood plane, inner war, you can make it to whatever you want. You want CAS, you can make it a CAS fucking bomber, okay? And it only costs rubber. You want to make it a naval bomber, you go right ahead. You add some fucking torpedo mountings, and you add, and that's it, because you only have one torpedo. And you can have naval bomber for only rubber. Very handy, okay? The only other thing is here, a tactical bomber, so an interwar medium airframe, which, again, is right here in the 33 tech. You can use non-strategic material, only costs rubber. You can play around with this fucking thing into your heart's content and do whatever the fuck you want with it, okay? And it only costs rubber. The last one, which is interesting enough, is going to be the basic large airframe. For some reason, the basic large airframe, okay, because these are both the same cost. So the 1936 one is the one I would use. You could use the one earlier, but why not use the better one when you can? You can put the non-strategic material, and you only pay rubber for a strap bomber of a 1936. Okay, and you can add as much bullshit as you want on here, and do whatever. That's up to you. But that does exist, in case you wanted that. Okay, so next I'm going to go talk about fighters versus the interceptors. So I will see you there. So I'll talk about technology, then we'll go to the fighter versus interceptor section. This is going to be very brief here, okay? If you go to your air tab, these are all the planes you can research. These are their models. Every interwar fighter you research comes with a carrier variant, okay? Interwar is the exact same way, except you don't get a carrier variant, and every single one of these aircraft technically improves air defense and slight alterations to the actual plane. Interwar is the exact same. You need jet engines. We'll talk about that in a minute. Your weaponry down here, 33 is these first techs. Bombs, you get bombs, and you can use nuclear weapons if you have medium and large bomb base. So basically tactical bombers and strategic bombers. And photo reconnaissance lets you build recon planes. Light MGs, but you put light MGs on whatever. Survivability studies lets you add self-sealing fuel tanks that require rubber, and then you can have armor plates and for small, medium, and big bombers. Big aircraft. Next, if you go heavy machine guns, which is what I would do, it is the best tech for Fighter 1, which we'll talk about in a minute. We'll talk about Fighter 1s, but this is the best one. Next is cannons. Cannons are very niche, okay? Cannon 1 and Cannon 2. I wouldn't fucking bother with Cannon 1. I'd rush Cannon 2 if you're going to use it on your 1940s. But we'll talk about this. The reason cannons are meh is they reduce your agility and they're a fuck ton of weight. We'll talk about that. Anyway. Engines are right here. You have so many different engines here, but basically this is how you increase your thrust, which basically gives you, and then also your speed, okay? If you want your aircraft to be better at fighting other aircraft, you need better engine. It's bar none. Aircraft construction right here in 1936, you get dive brakes, non-strategic material, floats, and a whole bunch of shit, okay? You basically need this fucking shit. If you want to make wood planes, and then dive brakes are useful for a variety of reasons, and the floating plane is. The last one here on the right is for range improvement. You get extra fuel tanks and you get drop tanks. Drop tanks are, by my opinion, every fucking plane that should have a drop tank. Two weight, two production cost, 300 kilometers. You need a drop tank. Next, Down here are your last aircraft. They're modern, but they require jet engines. Okay? If you go down here on the rocket side, you have to actually research guided missiles to get the jet engine right here, which gives you gas turbines and all of your engines for jets. Okay, there's only one jet engine per like 4, 6, 4, 3, 2, and 1s. There's only one, and it's the best. There is no upgrading it. Guided missiles, okay, and all of these rocket techs get you another thing called a rocket engine. We will talk about the rocket plane later, but basically it's a piece of shit because you can't fly anywhere. You basically can go straight up, and that's it. But otherwise, the last tech in 46 gets you guided anti-ship missiles, which are very good at blowing up ships, as you would expect. The last few techs I'll talk about here is your radios. Your radios give you a lot of a different electronic warfare stuff you can use, okay? Radio navigation you can get here. You can get more radio navigation, and then you can get air to ground, air to air, and then you can get air to air, air to ground, and all of that. So basically all of your radars are here for the electronics, which we'll talk about. And then finally, on your computer side, you have a bomb site 1 at Computer Tech 1, and then you have in the 1940s, you have the bomb site 2, okay? That's where those are. The last thing I'll talk about here is you need torpedoes, as basic torpedo, to get torpedo mountings for your bombers if you want to do naval strikes effectively. And then the mine warfare, you have to go all the way here, which is past 1940. Take aerial mine laying if you want airdrop mines, and if you want aerial mine sweeping, which is nobody gets this tech because it's 44, 45 tech, and you have to go through pressure mines first. And then you can get aerial mine sweeping, which gets you demining coil, which basically explodes in mines. Okay, so yeah, those are all of the techs that you really need to worry about. I don't think I missed any, but that's basically all the techs and where they are and what the fuck they do. Okay, now I want to talk about the fighter discussion. So fighters versus interceptors. Okay, so fighters versus interceptors. This is a very key difference that everyone needs to understand here. A fighter, this is a fighter 2 that I have designed. I will tell you why it is designed the way it is. It has 12 heavy machine guns on it. Okay, it has 12 heavy machine guns because we're under the thrust limit here, 25 weight. We use heavy machine guns because light machine guns are worse on air attack, and they only give a slight increase in speed, which we already talked about, does dog shit, okay? Now, the reason I don't put cannons on here is because it lowers their agility. Agility lowers your ability to actually fight other aircraft. If you have cannons, in my opinion, and it has always been this way, air attack does not make up for agility, okay? On fighters, the specific air superiority fighters do not lose your agility. It is not worth it. Another reason, 11 air defense versus 36 air attack with just heavy machine guns means you do triple the amount of damage a damn fighter can take already. You're already killing it 3 times over. I don't think you need 60 air attack on a fighter because it has 11 air defense. It's going down in either way. So congratulations there. So that is why air superiority fighters, I stick on heavy machine guns. If this changes for whatever fucking reason, and cannons lose the agility minus, or it is less severe, go ahead and put cannons on it. But for now, heavy machine guns, and then you can mix light machine guns if you have a problem with your weight and thrust ratio. Okay? Again, single engines, according to the patch that I am currently on, and will be from the future onward, is basically 1 engine planes go faster now, and 2 engine planes go slower, but they give you more thrust. Now, on a dedicated air superiority fighter like this one, there's only one other thing I would add. Drop tanks. You need drop tanks. 300-kilometer range is a significant factor, okay? If we take a look here and we go to our fighters, and we're going to look for our fighter 2, okay? You can see this is not very much range Actually, this is not very good at all. But the 300 kilometer increase for 2 weight is very significant. It is only 2 production cost. I would put this on every single air superiority fighter that I would make from 1940 onward. Okay, is that essential? Your fighter ones also, if they don't have the drop tank, they can only go. If they don't have the drop tank, they can only go 650. With a drop tank, that's 950. Okay, and this is the reason you have a drop tank. Okay, now on a fighter, a specific air superiority fighter, I don't have any other modules here. There's an exception that I will get to. Armored plating reduces your range, gives you air defense. Your air defense is so dog shit, it doesn't matter. Air brakes, you don't need. Floats, you don't need. Non-strategic material lowers your air defense to 5. I don't think you want to lower it anymore, but you can go ahead. Extra fuel tanks lower your defense, but they do increase your range. I wouldn't lower my defense because I would like not to do that. I'd rather pay more than just lowering my defense to make my plane actually worse. But that is an option. And self-sealing fuel tanks increase air defense, but air defense on a fighter is not very good. I wouldn't put a damn machine gun or anything on here because it lowers your agility because you're a plane, and that's bad. And we'll talk about this electronic here, okay? So, Fighter 2, basically, you need to put guns on here that don't lower your agility and give you enough air attack to kill yourself, more or less. Now, there is one variant here, and that is the following. If you have radio navigation, as I showed in the tech side, you can get a -20 night penalty off, okay? Now, this is very important. Because it lowers the penalty of night, okay? But it does increase your production cost. Now, the night fighter is 37.5 in this current patch, but I don't fucking know. It'll probably change. Versus 35. In my opinion, I would take the improved night fighter just for the ability to fly that mission at -20. There's different things you can do there. The strap bombing is just a fucking meme, but you take it for the night penalty reduction, okay? If you wanted that. If you don't, it's fine. Now, an interceptor is different from a air superiority fighter. This is your fighter. It's going on air superiority. This will be a heavy fighter, and it is going on intercept only. Now the difference. You pack an interceptor with as much fucking air attack as possible. It has 84. This will outright kill any fighter, but that's not what they're trying to kill. They are trying to kill bombers that have 71 air defense with some protection here, okay? And this is one we'll talk about later, but let's just say that 84 air attack might not even be enough in certain cases. Now, you pack it with as much fucking firepower as you possibly can. If you're on a Fighter 2, you should have Cannon 2s. It's very simple. Fighter 2s, you should have pretty much everything unlocked. Now, this is the only time I would use a 2-engine on a fighter, okay? Is this specific build for air attack, because it's going to lower your speed, but allow you to carry more armament. Get the drop tanks, because range. Next, if you get air-to-air radar, and you get radio navigation, you can see that radio navigation works all the time, okay? At a -20. Intercept, where air-to-air radar works on night, on intercept only. How can you check this? If you hover over your missions, and you click them, you can see that this will now be 60 negative penalty on intercept. On air superiority, it's only 20, okay? Intercept, with a heavy fighter like this, is for killing bombers that are bombing the shit out of your country. This is a very specific niche scenario in which you built this plane. This plane is almost double the production cost of a regular fighter, but its whole mission set is completely different. Okay, this thing will absolutely shit on fucking strat bombers. Your Fighter 2s will have a hard time actually killing bombers. This won't. This will kill everything that's a big bomber. Okay, fighters has a problem dealing with, but bombers not so much. So, I hope I broke down why the fuck you need a fighter versus an interceptor. Also, each of these cannons lowers your agility by 6. The agility of a Fighter 2 is 47. The agility of a heavy Fighter 2 is 47, right? And then a Fighter 2 is 65. So yeah, this thing will lose against a regular fighter in just a dogfight. But hopefully I covered it. Air superiority fighter, you need your agility maxed. Don't lower it. Don't lower it for really any reason. Get a drop tank. Get your best engine. Fighter 2, get as much firepower as you can on the damn plane. Yeah, even take 2 engines to get this. Drop tanks, get radio navigation and anti-air radar if you want to shoot bombers down at -60 penalty at night. Very good. Okay, so interceptor versus fighter, covered it, right? Next, we're going to talk about the big change for carrier fighters / bombers. So, carrier fighter / bomber. This is a very significant change. As I have stated beforehand, you get, every time you do a basic airframe, so your fighter airframe, you get a naval variant, okay? Now, this is the one plane I'm confident in saying, hey, you should just build this fucking design, okay? Now, this is a fighter 1. It applies to all of them, okay? Your primary slot, which is this one, which determines the plane type, okay? I would put machine guns to not lower my agility, okay? That much. Now, I would put a secondary weapon of a bomb lock on this damn thing, okay? Now, the reason I do this is because when they are technically on a different mission, naval strike and close air superiority, or close air support or whatever, they take an agility penalty. But not for naval combat. Because naval combat, they're not assigned a fucking mission. They just do whatever they do when the carrier is there, okay? Now, this primarily being a fighter means that in an aerial duel, if you look at the naval combat screen, fighters fight fighters. Once the enemy fighters are down, before the patch, the fighters did nothing afterwards. Now, if the fighters kill the enemy fighters and they go down, the fighters, your fighters, will bomb the enemy ships. That is a massive change. You no longer need to have a fucking dedicated bomber wing and a dedicated air wing, okay? Just make it a multi-role. That is what I would suggest. Unless you're hyper specific and you killed their planes or you're doing some other build, just make a bomb lock and get some machine guns on here. Get your best engine. I get dive breaks to get more naval targeting and get your air defense up. This is the one time I would say that you don't need drop tanks because they're on a carrier and they don't go anywhere. And self-sealing fuel tanks are good, but they require rubber and they increase your air defense. And the only reason I say you should increase your air defense is because ship AA will blow the shit out of you. Okay, if you don't have at least decent anti-air defense, they'll blow the shit out of you. Okay, and again, none of these technical modifiers, quote unquote, apply in theory because you're not on that specific mission. But don't quote me on that. Just know that this is a massive change for naval bombers, and you should make a multi-role, not a dedicated naval or fighter aircraft. Unless you're doing competitive multiplayer, and the other person is making competitive fighters and bombers because they want to be a scumbag, or they want to fucking win that hard. And you will then have to make a counter to that. In every other case, 99% of other Hoi players build a fucking multi-role plane for your carriers, and you only have to make one production line forever. Okay? Very simple. I hope I covered why that is a thing. Okay? Next, I will go on to CAS. Okay, so CAS. CAS hasn't really changed at all. I'm going to use a CAS 2 variant, so 1940. You put small bomb bays on this bitch, on the primary slot to make it a CAS. You then put another small bomb bay. You then put a bomb lock because you cannot put another small bomb bay. This will increase your close air support attack to the maximum it can possibly be. You will then put a single engine on here because you don't actually need the thrust of a 2-engine bomber. 2 engines because you only need one. You put a drop tank on here. You will put self-fueling fuel tanks, maybe, and you'll put dive brakes because dive brakes give you more air defense. You put a self-sealing fuel tank because you get more air defense if you have rubber. If you don't have rubber and you're not worried about range, you can put an armor plate instead. Now, all of this is combining to a, basically, you can't shoot shit down. You're going to get shot down if an enemy fighter is there, but you do a horrific amount of ground attack, okay? This is only 22 per plane. That's really, I mean, you're fucking shit up at that point, okay? Electronic modules here, I wouldn't really worry about them because your bomb sights only apply to strategic bombers, not for close air support. Okay, get your air defense as high as you possibly want for the resource cost here. And the reason you have air defense high is because if you make it through the planes, enemy fighters, which you should because your fighters killed them all, you then have to deal with the enemy anti-air. If there is no state anti-air, which is the big anti-air you can build in the states down here, you then have to deal with the ground AA that are going to be shooting at you. And the ground AA are not very, very good, but they can still hurt. And if your air defense is low enough, you'll lose planes bombing enemy divisions, okay? They have anti-air. So, all of that said, you need to stack your ground attack as much as possible on a cast bomber, and you need to get your air defense as high as possible, and have drop tanks. That's all I will say on that. Past that point, do whatever the fuck you want there, okay? But that's just a standard build, and it's always been the way it has been, okay? Next, I'm going to talk about Maritime Patrol aircraft, the new versions. Okay, so Maritime Patrol aircraft. That's what I would say on this. It is a very specific mission set, and you're going to use a improved airframe to do this because of its specific mission set. Okay? Again, a Maritime Patrol aircraft, as I previously covered, which I'm going to do so again so everyone understands it, is an aircraft that's going to go out to sea to spot enemy ships and subs, okay? So it has to have a really big fucking range. The planes that have really big range are your large airframes, okay? So knowing that, we will talk about the patrol aircraft, okay? This is the one I came up with. Your results may vary. You have different engine types. Get either enough speed or enough thrust. Up to you there, okay? If you want engine 3s and you want to have slightly different, slower aircraft, that works perfectly fine on this, and it's going to reduce your fuel cost, okay? Which is actually what I'm going to fucking do here, because you don't really need to have big fucking stupid planes out here. Next, you need to mount a torpedo armament here, okay, to make it a naval patrol bomber, okay? Then you're going to add as many torpedo mountings as you can, so 3, because you can't actually add a 4th one. You don't need any of this other shit, because you probably don't have it unlocked, and you don't actually need it. Next, get engines enough to make your thrust go. You're going to get an air-to-ground radar, okay? This is going to give surface and sub-detect at a negative 40 night penalty. You're going to then pack the ever-living shit out of this plane with extra fuel tanks. The last thing you're going to do is add a flying boat module to get more surface and sub-detect, okay? This means your aircraft has ridiculous range to spot enemy ships, and if needed, it can switch over to the bomber role and blow them the fuck up, okay? Now, the other module you could possibly get on here, if you really wanted to, is this radio navigation to reduce your night penalty to minus 60, okay? But that's up to you. If you want more range, you have more range. I go for more range versus the night penalty. If you need it, you can use it. If you can't detect enemies because they're at night, because for whatever reason, then sure, go ahead, put this on, okay? You're just losing 600 kilometers of range. In fact, I might actually use the radio navigation just because I want to spot every fucking thing possible, and I'm not that concerned about losing 600 kilometers. 600 kilometers is a lot of fucking range, by the way. It's not an insignificant amount, but there it is, okay? So, again, that is the plane design that you should go for when you're trying to build a naval patrol aircraft, okay? Again, using it to scout enemy shipping, and then, if you want to, you can blow them the fuck up. But that is the primary purpose. Get as max range on here. Maybe get some massive torpedo mounting like this. You don't have to. You could technically take them off, but they're only for production cost. So might as well max it out. And then you make it a flying boat, and you put the air-to-ground radar, okay? Air-to-ground radar and the flying boat are the most important modules, along with the extra fucking fuel tanks. So that's the patrol aircraft, okay? Next, we'll go on to scouts. Okay, so this cheap scout. This is literally the cheapest fucking piece of shit scout you could possibly get, okay? You have a camera, which makes it a scout, which means you only need 10 of them per air wing if you do this. Now, you can only put a camera like that on a medium aircraft. These medium airframes are the only ones that can get the camera in the primary slot. Okay, they're the only ones that can get the recon camera, which means they're the only ones that can be a scout technically, in the strictest definition of the sense. Okay, this is the cheapest thing you can possibly build, 30. And here is its range. If you're wondering what a scout's range is, for just building a fucking cheap plane, this is it. Pretty big fucking range, if you ask me, for nothing mounted on it. Now, your cheap scout has 20 air defense. I wouldn't really be worried about putting a whole bunch of bullshit on this thing, unless you wanted to do a specific scouting mission, okay? If you do scouting at night, you suffer less of a penalty, or you suffer a penalty to acquiring targets, but you reduce the chances of being detected. Now, we're going to talk about different scouting builds, because this is now a thing that you can do, which, in my opinion, is actually pretty fucking good, which we'll talk about my SR-71 build later, but basically, you don't need anything else on this fucking plane. On your primary slots, you need nothing, okay? Next, your engines. You can do what you want here. You don't really need to fucking max your engines out, but you can if you want to make it go fast, but you don't really need to. The only other things on here that I could add, possibly, is if you wanted to take a negative night penalty, add this radio navigation here. That'll get you a -20 to night penalty, okay? And that's really all you can do to reduce a night penalty, because everything else requires you to be on a specific mission, and if you're not on that mission, you don't get the bonuses. The only other things I could do now, add extra fuel tanks out the fucking ass. If you wanted to be super special snowflake plane, okay, and you want to recon somewhere really far away, you can recon for 4,000 kilometers. That's really good on an improved scout plane, okay? If this is the ultimate scout plane you want, it costs 40 instead of 30, but this is basically the ultimate fucking scout plane. Up to you on what you want to do there. Also, your air defense goes to fucking 1, but you're also a scout. So, you do what you want there. If you wanted to add defensive turrets for whatever reason to increase your defense to make sure you come home, that's also an option. Your results may vary on that, okay? But that is Scout, the cheap Scout for level 2. Next, I will talk about NAVs. Okay, so naval bombers. NAVs. Your primary slot is a torpedo mounting, okay? We'll talk about this bullshit in a minute. The torpedo mounting gives you the ability to naval strike, okay? You add at 1 engine, because you don't need to carry a lot of bullshit. You add a drop tank, and there you go. This is your cheapest fucking naval bomber you can possibly build. You cannot add more torpedo mountings. You can add a bomb lock, but as it will state here, you will not be using it on naval strikes, and it will not, and it will interflict with the greater damage. So, you can't use it. Yeah. I wouldn't really be fucking mounting anything else, because these things are going to get shot the fuck down. They're going to get shot down from the enemy fighters, and they're going to get shot down from enemy anti-air. If you wanted to, for some reason, you could add some armor to this plane, which, go ahead. Maybe they'll make it a little better, but you can't actually have many more bomb slots. Don't go adding aircraft anti-attack. Don't go adding air attack to this. There's no fucking point in doing that. But yeah, the only other variant I'll talk about here is night. If you are going to be bombing the shit out of people at night, there was something that can help you here. You have the drop tanks. You have the same setup. You have radio navigation for -20 night penalty, always. Then you have air-to-ground radar, which will help you do naval strikes, okay, port striking, and technically naval patrol, at -60 penalty. This is another variant I would use, okay? This requires a lot of heavy investment on you from the electronics section, but it is, you get what you pay for. For fucking 6 more resource, or 6 more production, you get a significantly better night fighter, night bomber, basically, for 6 production cost, which is, I would take that. There is no reason to not do that if you have the ability to do so. And just remember, these are cheap because you can't actually mount many weapons to them. It's just the way they fucking designed it. Okay. The last thing I'll talk about, which they added in the open update, that you won't see in your current version of the game, but will be there in about a week or a few weeks, I guess, is this guided anti-ship missile. This is technically, you can put as many fucking missiles on this goddamn thing as you want. Now, the problem with this tech, okay, I'm not even going to get into whether it's worth it or not. Yes, worth it. Fucking strap 3 goddamn missiles to this thing and kill everything, okay? It's amazing. But here's the problem with this tech. It is a 1946 tech, and it is on a guided missile research. So first of all, nobody fucking researches this tech line already. That's your first problem. Second problem, it's a 1946 tech for guided anti-ship missiles. So, is it worth it? Sure. Are you going to use it in the game? No. You're not going to use it in the game. So, there you go. That sums up NAVs. Next, I want to talk about strategic bombers. Okay, so strategic bombers. There's a lot to talk about here, and I'm going to cover it very generally. There's not a specific design that you can just copy. Sorry, you're going to have to learn. Because Paradox doesn't like you. So, strategic bombers. The biggest fucking airframe you could possibly get is required. Okay. You then need, so we'll talk about the level 2, so the improved large airframes. You can then add large bomb bays. You can technically support strike with this. Not very good at it. Actually, they're fucking awful at it. But it is an ability, okay? Now, each one of these bomb bays gives you 30 strategic bombing. That's a fucking lot. Just 2 of these is around what you had beforehand. Actually, I think it's a little bit more than you had beforehand, okay? You can add more fucking bomb bays to your heart's content to make this thing ridiculous. That's what I did on this actual B-fucking 29. It says 90 weight, 90 thrust, and has nothing but bomb bays. Okay? So, I'm going to talk about the 2 variants here. Okay? So, your strategic bombers. The B-29. What is the B-29 useful for? Okay. Very simple. You put as many fucking engines on this thing as possible to get his max thrust. You put as much bombs as fucking possible on a strategic bomber. And you put a bomb sight, and you put air-to-ground radar for even more strat bombing. And then you put another radio navigation for even more strat bombing. You get self-sealing fuel tanks for some air defense if you want, and some extra fuel tanks. I'd even fucking swap this out and get some more fucking, some more fucking fuel tanks, right? But your air defense is really shit. So what is this plane useful for? This B-29. Very simply, you are going to use this bomber if you are bombing short range, so like England to France, and you have complete air superiority, okay? And the enemy has no air defense, okay? No AA. You will bomb the bejesus out of everything that this aircraft touches. It costs a stupid amount, but there you go. And you can't even fucking actually add more modules because you'd actually exceed your weight limit here. But hey, you do what you're gonna do, okay? That is what I would use this bomber for. A different variant, the B-17, is less bombs, but you have a bomb sight still, so more bombing. You have self-sealing fuel tanks. Now this is where it gets good. You have armored plating, and you have cannon defense. In the real B-17, they had machine guns, but fuck it. And the only reason you use these defensive turrets is basically you need air attack. Your agility is already dog shit. Let's put it this way. Your agility is already fucking like trash can levels. So it's not going to do much for you there. But your air defense being able to actually take hits and maybe shoot them down is a good idea if you want to do this. This is a little bit multi, okay? Now, you would use this if you're, one, flying into contested airspace, so Germany, for example, you don't have air superiority, and you're taking AA damage, okay? This is what you could use for this variant. Another variant of this is if you needed, like, absolutely defensive, let's just say you had air superiority, so you don't have to worry about the air attack, but they have level 5 AA. If that is the case, and you're running from England to there, so you have short range on these bombers, you have very short fucking range on these bombers. You are going to add fucking as much armored plating to the bomber as possible. Okay. You can only have one self-sealing fuel tank. That is the reason you can't, just stack the fuck out of them. And if you really wanted to, because your bomb and strap bombing is fucking 66, I would actually drop your bomb sight to get even more armor. Okay? Now, you're going to have to lose. Now, this is going a little bit over. You need to get like engine 4s or do something weird here. Maybe drop this armor. Maybe drop a bomb bay. I would drop this armor, in my personal opinion, and then try to do something else here. But what you are trying to do here is max your air defense to take incoming anti-air fire. Okay? You have no way of shooting bombers down. You have no way of shooting enemy aircraft down. But let's just say you have air superiority. Okay? But you want to take as much damage from AA without getting shot down and returning back to England. Okay? With very short fucking range, but a pretty decent bomb load. Okay? This will do that for you. This is why strategic bombers are a little bit more in-depth. There's a lot of fucking play here, okay, that you can do. Just remember, I'll just give you some general tips here. You want to bomb the shit out of someone and they have no anti-air defense and they have no fucking fighters, you put as much bomb bays on here as possible and you go to town. If they have some fighters and you don't have complete air superiority and they also have some AA, building a multi-role of some kind like this works, okay, with the bomb sighting and all this shit. If you are running into the problem of you have air cover, they have no planes left, but you need to bomb the shit out of them, but they have a lot of fucking AA, then you strap as much goddamn air defense at this bomber as possible and hope it makes it home. That's just what you do there, okay? So hopefully I covered straps enough for you to be able to build your own strap bombers there, okay? So next, I will talk about the rocket planes. So, the rocket plane. Let's talk about this piece of shit. So, this is the best case, earliest / best rocket plane you could possibly get. Okay? At guided 2, right? At guided 2, you have 80 minus 85% range. Minus your and your speed, okay? And your thrust. Okay? Best possible fucking scenario. Because your rocket engine 1 is 90 range minus 700, and the next tech next to it with a single jet engine has 900 kilometers. And has the same thrust ratio. Okay? They're not gonna change it. I'll fucking eat my words if they do. But jet engines is right there. Get jet engines, they're better. But best possible scenario for some fucking reason I want to build a goddamn rocket plane. Okay? Coolio. At best, you strap this fucking thing with as much goddamn cannons as possible, because this is an interceptor. This is a straight up interceptor. You can add night capabilities to shoot the ever living shit down out of anything that comes in night, okay, against you. And that's really about it. Because, you cost a lot for not a lot, okay? If you add drop tanks, you see how it says it's going to add 300 kilometers? You have minus 85% range. You can only get it up to 210. So, good luck with that. And another thing is, I'll just show you the fucking range of 185 kilometers here. Because it's fucking stupid how short range this goddamn thing is. So, if we look for my rocket plane, this right here, this yellow circle right there, that is your range. As you can clearly see, we have 0.3 mission efficiency in this area because of this such short fucking range. You again could, in theory, increase this range slightly. That's it. I don't know where the fuck you would use this thing. I'm gonna be very honest with you guys. I have no idea where you would use a rocket interceptor because they have such short range. They lose all their mission efficiency on whatever the fuck they were doing to go fast. And the thing is, you get jet engines next to them. So, yeah, that's rocket interceptors. If you wanted to build something like this. Don't build it. I don't know. Do what you want there. They're not very good fucking planes, and they ever have been or will be. Next, I'll talk about the mine layers. Okay, so the mine layer. As I stated beforehand, this is an advanced Maritime Patrol aircraft, which means it's a 1944 past tech. Because, very simply, to get what we're going to talk about here, you have to have a 42-ish tech for aerial mine laying, and for the demining, you have to have a 45 tech. And the thing is, if you have those, you have an advanced bomber at this point anyway. So, what do you do with this damn thing? Very simply, you strap a torpedo to it, because it takes the least amount of agility and all that other fucking shit, and doesn't weigh that much. You then strap as many aerial mines to this fucking thing as possible. You give it some engines, of any type you really fucking want, and then you have a demining coil. This lets you mine sweep and mine lay, and then if you want more range, you put a fuck ton of more range on this goddamn thing if you want. I don't see a reason to not put more range on here. Just it's going to cost the absolute fuck ton to do so. But it'll be cheaper than a ship, which it is competing against. So if you have the ability to build these over a ship, build these because one, they don't blow the fuck up in a port, and two, they can basically lay mines really everywhere. Just the basic version, just my basic version without any fuel tanks whatsoever, can reach all right on here and lay mines and blow them the fuck up. So that's what your mine layers are for. Because again, the only other thing that can mine lay and mine sweep are ships. Okay, just for an example here, to get the mine laying gear is 30, and mine laying rails are 90 for one. Okay, for one mine laying, they're 90. Okay, you get 0.05 mine laying, but they do it forever. I would definitely take these over anything, but they're such a late game tech, you'll probably never fucking use them, but I thought I would include them in this video. So that is fucking your mine layers. Last thing we'll go talk about on this jet aircraft, and then we'll talk about the SR-71. Okay, so jet aircraft. What changes? Not a fucking lot. So on your most advanced plane, which is your modern small frame, you're going to add as many heavy machine guns to a fighter as possible. Again, I've already covered this. You have jet engines here. So you have 1 and 2. 1 is there, 2 is there. 2 gives you more thrust, costs more. It's not worth it for the speed increase of 10 kilometers and the massive increase in fuel usage. So don't do that. Drop tanks and then radio navigation for night capability, because at this point, fuck it. And then you can add whatever the fuck else you want on here. More fuel tanks, you can have more armor. The self-sealing fuel tanks is actually what I would go with if you're going to build a goddamn jet plane anyway. But yeah, that's the fighter version of it. Bomber, cast bomber, same thing. You just add all that shit there. Naval bomber, the exact same fucking thing as I've described beforehand. Just remember that a jet engine is very good. And the reason they're very good is because they're very fucking fast. Now, a jet engine is 200 something kilometers, not even 200 kilometers better than your jet engine 4, which is your maximum jet engine you can possibly get on planes in the 44 tech. So, reality is, you have the ability, if you have the ability to get jet engines, you get jet engines because they're better. Because of the massive speed increase, it's just worth it on pretty much every fucking aircraft, okay? And then the last thing I'll cover right here for this jet aircraft is this Scout. Scout, massive fucking range with 2 jet engines. You could put 4 jet engines on there for more speed for no fucking reason. You can make it as cheap as fucking possible with these, and it goes super fast, and that's all it needs to do. to recon enemy states, right? Because if you actually look at fucking scout planes, and we just take a look here, your modern scout can go this far with all that shit on there. So yeah. Next, we'll talk about the SR-71 Blackbird. Okay, so the SR-71 Blackbird. So this aircraft is very special and near to my heart. If you don't know what the fucking Blackbird is, please look it up after this video. So you are going to choose to get the Naval Strike mission, or mounting torpedoes here. You could also take a bomb mission set here, but it's going to increase your weight. And the only reason I wouldn't do that is it lowers your agility and it lowers your speed, and your speed is very important to me because you want to go fast. Next thing is you put a recon camera here, okay? And then you can't put anything else here. Don't bother. Put as much fucking engine power as possible to this aircraft because I think it's hilarious that you can make it go that fast. There were more efficient designs, but fuck that. We're gonna put as much goddamn extra fuel tanks on it. Okay. Now, if you remember previously to me talking about scouting aircraft, there is a because it is technically not a scouting aircraft. And the reason it is not a scouting aircraft is because it is a naval bomber right here. But for the primary mission slot, but it has a camera. Okay, so, but this is where it gets interesting. This is why I actually like this shit. So, this is our fucking range right here. You can agree it's kind of insane. You could boost this even more if you had an aircraft designer, by the way. But fuck it for this video. Okay, for right now, it works. So yeah, you could even get more increased range. You could probably fucking fly around the world, really, if you wanted to. Next is, as I remember, you can perform aerial reconnaissance on non-scout planes. Can only execute this mission on enemy-controlled states. So, for example, if you were, I don't know, United States of America, and you were at war with Germany, you could technically fly your scout bomber all the way to Germany, and because you're at war with them, you will be getting the intel bonus. So yeah, that's your SR-71. Are you ever going to build this in a game? Probably fucking not. But it's hilarious that you can even do so. For example, if you put this thing in New York, you could fly to the Soviet Union and recon their shit, as long as you're at war with them, and do it like that. So, I think it's kind of interesting and fun, but your results may vary. Lastly, we're going to talk about our fucking doctrines and spirits, okay? So I'll see you for the doctrine part. Okay, so, last things we're going to cover here are your doctrines. So, they've kind of changed slightly. Nothing majorly has changed about these doctrines. Strategic destruction, bombers, battlefield support, everyone takes this because of CAS. Operational integrity, interceptors, and shenanigans. So, strategic destruction. Air superiority, you get fighter detection, ground support here, intercept detection. Standard shit. Naval mission efficiency, intercept efficiency, and then air superiority efficiency. You will notice that they are not applying to specific aircraft here, okay? They apply generally. That is the biggest change here, okay? The only exception, multi-altitude flying, heavy fighters and fighters. Somebody please report this to Paradox, because these no longer exist, so there you go. Fucking hot code right here, but this should just be fucking agility increases. Maybe they'll fix it, maybe they won't. You get more air superiority here. Now, this is important. Nighttime strategic bombing penalty minus 50 here, and then you get 20 here. And then you get more strategic bombing there and escort efficiency here if you do it that way. So, night bombing penalty for strategic bombing, minus 50%. You can basically fucking bomb at night with like negative 100 and like 40 if you equipped all of the electronics and then you did the night bombing. So yeah, you can bomb efficiently at night as you can in day. Very good. Bomber defense, strategic bombing, and air superiority. Again, they're just general stat increases. They're no longer tied to specific aircraft, which is very good. Except multi-altitude flying, I guarantee you that will be patched out, so I'm not going to worry about it. Battlefield support, okay? Flying formations, fighter detection, and air wing mission XP, okay? Get your dive bombing here. Air support mission efficiency, again, does not specify it has to be CAS, it's just applied generally. Ground support, same thing, applied generally. Air support here, ace generation chance here. You go this side because aces are... You take this side if you want to RP, and you take this side if you actually want to play the game. Hunt and destroy, air superiority, or air support mission efficiency, okay? Again, there. And then here, combat unit destruction does only actually apply to cast for their agility. So there you go. You have air superiority here, tactical strat bomber. Right here it says strat bombing, 10% increase, and then here it says tactical strat bombing. Probably will be fixed. Maybe will be. I don't fucking know. Ground support here. But yeah, generally strat bomber. Fuck it. Naval mission efficiency, strategic bombing, and intercept detection. Again, all standard shit. Nothing really changed in these doctrines besides the fact that they generally apply to things. The last thing I'll cover here on this side is force rotation for operational integrity. Again, standard shit. Aces, ground support, fighter detection, air support, air superiority. You can then take both sides of this tree, which is, I think, a deal. I'm not really positive, but fuck it. You get your fighters here. This is also still fucking broken. Fighter and heavy fighter, because heavy fighters don't really fucking exist anymore. Naval mission efficiency plus 10. And then you have air support mission efficiency right here, and you have tactical bombing, strat bombing. It says strat bombing. It probably only applies to your attacks right now, but I'll fix it eventually. Now, this is the big deal. Strategic bombing visibility minus 50%. Let's read this. The chance of being detected by the enemy when on strategic bombing missions is minus 50%. All of this shit is linked down below. You can go look at it. This used to only apply to tactical bombers, if I remember correctly, but now this applies to everything. Anything that is strategically bombing. This means your planes become fucking invisible. Half the time. For strategic bombers. I don't need to tell you that that is very fucking good. Okay? And then you have air skirmishes and high-level bombing. This right here is basically the major change. If anybody wants to take this and test it in multiplayer and fucking laugh at people, as they're like, I can't shoot down any of your bombers, and you just laugh maniacally because your bombers have stupid air defense and they can't be seen, and you bomb the shit out of people. You may not be doing as much damage as this side, but if they can't shoot you down, well, you'll do more damage in the end, right? So, there you go. There's your air doctrines. They'll probably fix a few things that I said they would, but other than that, I've covered everything there. So, lastly, I'll talk about the spirits, and then we should wrap this fucking video up. Okay, so, the spirits slightly change. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to go through the standard ones here. Air advisor cost is the same. Air liaison, you take this always, every fucking time. No bars asked for the research speed increase. Air XP plus 0.10. Air and force intelligence minus 5. Air wing mission efficiency. So you basically get more firm training. This right here from the minus 15 doctrine cost is actually worth it if you take it early enough. Okay. Otherwise, air liaison is the best. Now, they have slightly changed some of these ones here. Battlefield air interdiction, escort efficiency, ground attack modifier. Good. Air and wing experience loss, minus 25. Meh. Centralized air control, fighter detection, and air mission efficiency. This is the one you always take. The air mission efficiency is something that is almost impossible to improve. Okay? Basically, it makes your missions better in every single way, and it applies to all of the missions. So, that is why you take centralized control. Airborne heroes, ace effectiveness plus 50%. Pretty good. And air power projection, if I remember correctly, this is going to basically increase if you have one fighter. I'll take it for example here. If you have a fighter, you can see that it is air superiority is 1. With this air production, it becomes 1.1. So you technically get more air superiority for the planes. Very little. Everyone takes centralized control because it's the best. They probably changed a whole bunch of more of them. I can link the old articles in the description, and they'll probably be updated eventually, and you can go check out there and see what the actual stats are for there. But otherwise, that should cover that. I've covered everything here. The last thing here I'll cover is the chiefs of staff. So if you get night ops minus 20, and then you stack it with fucking absolutely everything you can possibly do, is you get 50 here minus 70, and then you get your bombers, and you also put them on it. So we're already at 70 off of bombing people, and then you take this and you put 60. So now you're at a negative 130 negative penalty for night bombing, which basically means you just don't bomb it. You bomb at night as well as you do in day. So pretty good there. Okay. So other than that, I think we are done. This video is probably over an hour long. So if you made it to this part, I congratulate you, sir. Otherwise,
I hope this is the last time I have to cover the air doctrines. I'm not going to make 10 more guides for this because they want to change little minor things. So, hope you like that. Hopefully, this can be your quick reference guide for all of your plane needs. Otherwise, I'll catch you people next time.